Welcome to Keep the Line Moving, the podcast where leadership meets life and inspiration. Here we spotlight extraordinary leaders. We're diving deep into how they inspire, motivate, and lead with strategy and empathy to achieve the extraordinary. Here we go. Episode 139 of the podcast, and our guest is Julie Zwissler. This is an in-depth conversation on the topic of stories, storytelling, branding, and stories of change are always the best stories. She is the CMO of Office Beacon. She's had decades of experience in marketing throughout the industry of sports, broadcast, and general marketing. But this conversation is so much more than marketing. This podcast this week is the essence of what we try to do on this podcast every week. It's about leadership, life, and inspiration. We will hit all three of those today and then some. You will get some education today. If you listen to this podcast tomorrow, you will be a better professional when you go into your business or log on to your remote situation. I guarantee you, Julie goes in depth. We talk about all things leadership. Julie and I were introduced by our mutual friend, Dr. Dan Kaufman. I worked with Dan at the Jets. They have met, Julie and Dan, through LinkedIn. She will tell this story. Julie has not written a book, but I tell her during the conversation she should. You'll hear why. She just has a way of going in depth on every topic that we bring up about leadership, marketing, why companies do what they do, the difference between a company brand and an individual's brand. She got her undergraduate degree from her hometown, University of Washington, and then her graduate degree at Pepperdine from social entrepreneurship. That was her master's topic, social entrepreneurship. I'm so glad you're with us. The conversation begins now with Julie Zwissler. Julie, this is fun. I get to meet great people in life. You get to meet great people in life. We met each other, and this is tremendous. We're able to connect and do this. How are you doing today, coming to us from Los Angeles, California?
I'm doing great. It's beautiful here. Life is pretty awesome.
I love LA. It's a beautiful place to live. Do you enjoy living there?
I love living here. Coming from sports and working in the industry for so many years, it's a pretty amazing place to live. We have two NBA basketball teams who made the playoffs, and then Dodgers, they won the pennant. So it's a pretty amazing place. Phenomenal weather, amazing people. I absolutely love living in LA, but I am a Seattle native, so I hold true to a lot of my Seattle home teams, which is why I have that Peyton jersey in my background.
That's right. He was a great supersonic.
The best.
The Seattle
Yeah.
Supersonics were always good, right?
Oh yeah. They were, that's a lot of my high school and childhood growing up really wanting to work in sports marketing, and Sonics were one of the first advertising projects that I ever got to work on. So they hold a very, very, very solid gold place in my heart. So I love my Peyton jersey. It is autographed. He didn't play with the Lakers long, but when I was working at the launch of the regional sports network and they were sort of talking about, hey, you should put a Lakers jersey in your office, I was like, could I get the Gary Payton one? Because that one is amazing. So I do get comments on the Gary Payton jersey a lot.
So listen to this, Julie. You've just casually alluded to these experiences. We're a few minutes into this, and you've already referenced a regional sports network and where you've worked. Your career is amazing. And let's start for where we are now and then work our way backwards if we could. So you and I met. We're so fortunate to be on this advisory board of this amazing company, Order.
Yes.
Led by Evan and Jade and Ryan and Dr. Dan. Just an amazing, and that's how we met. Dr. Dan introduced us. It's just such an amazing group. So you could take it in any direction you want. We can go fabric first or order first. Tell me where, your thoughts are right now as I bring up the way you and I met.
Well, I think let's go fabric first, because that's actually how I met Dr. Dan.
Okay.
Probably one of my favorite humans in this whole world. He has an energy that is captivating and so fun to be around. So, Dan, hello.
I love it.
Um, Dan and I actually met on LinkedIn, and let's just talk about the power of networking. So, Dan and I, when I was working at Fabric was originally a social app to connect college students in person, and we launched the app on March 2020. Talk about being at a startup and trying to find a pivot. So we had reached out to all these universities, ready to launch something at South by Southwest, and everything gets canceled. So my CEO and I are like, what do? We have a entire app about getting people together in person, and we need to make a fast pivot. And so going back to my sports background, I said, sports is somewhere where everyone connects and has amazing engagement. You and I, when we first met, we chatted about sports for 5 minutes and we were immediately connected. I walk down the street, and if I'm wearing a Seahawks hat, someone will be like, "Go Hawks!" Right? I don't know who the guy is, but there's an immediate connection. There's nothing that connects people in person or even virtually better than sports. So I started just reaching out to random people online on LinkedIn. We're working our connections, and Dan actually responded. And in June of 2020, he and I jumped on a Zoom call and had this great conversation. And we stayed friends. We never actually worked together during the time I was at Fabric and he was at the Jets, but we had this great conversation, great connection. And so when I was ready to start a different career path and move on from Fabric, he was like, "You got to meet these guys at a company called Vertical Motion. I think you met Tom, the founder." And he and I stayed connected. And then that's what brought me to Order. And so, talk about an amazing connectivity that was founded by the idea of just reaching out, networking, having amazing connections, and the power of being open to having those conversations because you never know where it's going to lead you in your career path.
So, okay, so that's very interesting. And yeah, and we have to say, I haven't said it clearly here, Dr. Dan Kaufman, so everybody could look him up. He is the connector, absolutely. So tell me about your day to day now.
So 25, probably more than 25 years ago, and I'm really dating myself now, I worked at another company and with a gentleman named Pranav, and he and I have stayed friends over all these years. And he has a amazing company called Office Beacon, which is managed remote staffing. He's been wanting to grow the sports relationships. So working at Fabric at a lot of different sports relationships, I introduced him some of the people at NFL Alumni Association. They have a partnership deal. Now we want to do some more stuff with basketball, with the NBA. And I never thought I'd work in managed remote staffing. It's not something that I have a ton of experience with, but what's amazing is I know for myself, I love being an entrepreneur. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but I like to work within teams and I like to have budgets to be able to scale and grow, but also be able to make effective decision making that will help grow, scale, and have strategy for the company, overall goals, annual marketing direction. So I'm now the chief marketing officer for Office Beacon. Pranav is the CEO. He has 5,700 employees. It's the largest privately owned remote staffing company. He has offices in India, Philippines, South Africa, US, and Mexico. And he wants to grow it to the whole next level. So it's still fun because I'm still someone in the sports adjacent arena. And with that, I've also decided to join a couple of big boards that I've always wanted to have the time to do. I recently joined as a board of directors heading up the marketing for women in sports and events for Los Angeles. They are an amazing women run organization for women that want to work in sports. Unbelievable women. We have events all over Los Angeles, and women in sports have chapters all over the world, all over the nation. So if you are a female and interested in learning more about sports, I would definitely say check out Women in Sports Wise.
That's wonderful and a wonderful story. And you said so many great things that I want to tackle here. So the LA Women in Sports, I think that is awesome. So tell me, what are the topics when you all get together, whether virtually
Oh,
or in person? How are the topics determined? Is it free flowing? I'm fascinated with this.
There's so many. Okay, so we have an amazing board in Los Angeles. So I can't speak to the national because I'm still fairly new to WISE in general. But the topics are very much who are the members are asking for specific topics to be discussed. So they have a couple of different programs that are always ongoing. We have a mentor and a mentee program. We do roundtable discussions or panel discussions, and then we have peer networking. So we have some fun things called circles, which is just basically, so we just recently had a really amazing event in Long Beach, California. There's an amazing sports bar, and the only thing that they play is women's sports. So we had a networking event where it was purely for people to meet other people in the industry and have a great time and learn about women in sports. And then we had a mentoring event at the Pasadena Rose Bowl, and it was two former Olympic athletes. And then we had roundtables where mentors went around for to be able to just ask questions like, what does it feel like to work with the NBA? What does it feel like to work with the Dodgers? What have you done at the Rose Bowl Stadium? I've never seen an organization where it's so empowering. The women really get to network with each other, get to learn about what different people do within the sports industry, and really lift each other up. And they're all about helping, open doors. And Chris, you work in sports, you know how hard it is to get that door open. If you don't
Mhm.
know someone, it's hard to break into this industry. So that's what women in sports is all about.
I love it. So, needless to say, you're a mentor to
Yes, I
people
love
that,
being a mentor. Yeah.
yes, as a mentor, what is your core message, Julie? What is it that you say to folks to keep them going when they get discouraged? Because you mentioned how hard it is to be in sports and to have a sustained success in sports. What do you say? Like, what is it? What is it that you want to give back to these folks?
So I don't mean to sound like a badgering the networking, but it really is networking. Every conversation may lead you to an opportunity. Secondly, don't ever give up. Have that faith that you're going to make that right decision or have that right connection or apply for that right job. And the third thing that I would really say is like, really know yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Be your authentic self and really know who you are because that's going to resonate with the people you meet. And the better you know what works well for you, right? So I always tell my staff, I am not a very detail oriented person. I get lost when people start talking details and get lost in the minutia. I'm not good at it, but it's very important. So for me, I always try and hire staff that one or two or three people are very organized and really know the details and so that we don't fall through the cracks, right? Someone's always got a blind side. Everyone should be able to take constructive criticism. And if you're working with the right team, that constructive criticism is actually going to help you in the future. So really knowing what your strengths are and what resonates well with you and where you will succeed will only help you grow in your career path. And you have to have a lot of humility to be able to take that constructive criticism. Doesn't mean that you're bad at something. It just means that we all have areas to grow. Listen, you and I have been working in industry for 30 plus years, and we still have things that we're constantly learning. That's why your podcast is so amazing. I loved watching what other people have to say. It's so interesting to hear what their different experiences have been. If you have a growth mindset for yourself, you're always going to upskill yourself, right? And you're always going to be able to give something back.
Oh my gosh, Julie. All right, all right. First of all, one, I'm running out of ink because you're giving me so many great notes to write. Two, you should write a book. You really should write a book. Three, your answers have such depth and they're thoughtful. There's no other way. And I so appreciate this topic of mentor mentee. So you talked about growth mindset and humility. Julie, can you teach humility to somebody?
Yes and no. So I believe that anyone and everyone can change. And so the reason why I say yes is that you can always plant a seed and a thought that makes people, percolate on the idea. But can you force them if they listen? There's some people that are just born and have a lot of hubris. Like I think of the opposite of humility as hubris. And there are just those people. And if they're not open minded to it, it's hard to teach someone humility. But I say yes with hope that if you imprint on them and make them think about what that means, get them to recognize it when they start seeing it in other people, other leaders, other people that they work with, then that might open up that sort of understanding and willingness and desire to want to learn more humility. I used to do this fun exercise with my team at Fabric. We did a active listening exercise. A lot of times people will just go, "Yeah, that sounds great." But, some of the things that I love listening to people and really hearing their stories and gaining some insight and also reflecting back. It helps people feel seen and understood, and that you recognize what they're saying, and being able to repeat back what someone has said to you is an amazing skill set. So we started practicing some of this active listening because there's a lot of information nowadays that comes at you, and you can't retain all of it. But when you're talking one on one to someone, like Chris, you're an amazing listener. I know that you hear me when we have these discussions, not just on your podcast, but when we were meeting up and just getting to know each other. It's so fun, and I feel so heard and listened to, and it's like this engagement goes deeper because our interactions are getting deeper, and we're getting to know each other better. Well, if you're not a good listener, the person that you're talking to isn't going to actually want to talk to you anymore, right? So I feel like the humility helps you be maybe it goes both ways, right? Active listening helps you build that sort of muscle for humility so that you're hearing someone and it's not about just you talking and about yourself and how great you are, right? And the humility allows you to also take in that information and see what you could do with it.
Two things. So here, I'm going to prove to you that I'm listening, because not this answer, but the answer previously, you said something very nice about my podcast, right? That you love listening to people talk about their journeys and their, the words you used is just their stories and how they deal with certain things, right? So Julie, you're bringing up these incredible topics like active listening, humility, hubris, all those things. So I'm going to give it to you and me now. Why? And I'm going to give you my why, and then I want to hear your why.
Okay.
Obviously, my why is this: I do this podcast to give people a competitive edge in their business life or personal life or if they're coaching. That's the why, to give you an edge on your listening, to give you an edge on how to be a little bit more compassionate or servant leadership mentality. That is my why.
My why is really simple. Anyone that has worked in any company has had good and bad managers. And my why is let's stop let's stop leading with negativity, fear, and all the cons of bad management. But if you build better leaders, better managers, and give them the tools to guide with compassion and understanding and helping people perform. I would say if people are empowered to really perform in a way that enables them to do their job better and are excited about it and are excited to help each other in their team, you're going to have a better team, and you're going to have employees and staff that will stay with you for years and years, right? If we teach people how to become better leaders, better managers, we will have better companies, we'll have happier. You spend 40 to 50 to 60 hours a week at work, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you actually enjoyed what you did? And I get very I get very inspired when my team is excited to be at a Monday morning meeting or excited to come together and see each other. When I worked at Fabric, we had such an amazing company culture. Office Beacon, at my department, we have an amazing company culture, and I feel blessed to be working with all of these people. So my why is very simple. Learning these things and me becoming a better leader will help inspire and build the next generation of better leaders and better managers. And that will also help transform how companies are, will help with retention, company culture, productivity, but also overall happiness, right? It's really important to enjoy what you do, and I believe it's our given right to be happy at work. Why not? Like what an anomaly. I very much enjoy work. I remember back in the days before, I'm not going to name the companies, but where I had Sunday blues, and I don't have that anymore. I also even log in sometimes on the weekend because I'm excited to see what's happening. And that means that I enjoy my work and I enjoy the team that I'm working with. So that's why I like to do this. I like to give that back and show people that it's possible and hopefully inspire the next generation of thoughtful, transformative servant leaders. That those are things that I really care about. And I do believe that it will make a huge impact in the work, in our professional workforce.
And the statistics back you up, Julie. So I study this and do this for a living, right? The
Yeah,
statistics back you up that 70% people say they're not fulfilled at work. Well, what does that mean? That's a
yeah,
real business metric. That
yeah,
goes back to what you said about having bad leaders and managers as we come up in our career or later in our career. Nobody wants to have that. So you've got to do the work to get better to not have that. You can't just roll the
exactly.
dice. Hey, I hope I'm good today at leading. You have to lead with intention, right? I'm getting on my
Yes.
soapbox. I don't like when I do that, but I feel strongly about
It,
it.
it's very true, though. You have to, like, I love that comment. You have to lead with intention and
Hmm.
be mindful of the way you're building your team and working with different departments and everyone you meet, right? I'm a big believer in brand touch points, but not just for your company, but for yourself, right? So your company is one thing, but like, what about your personal brand touch points? It's so important to know who you are and how you want to grow your personal brand too. This is your career path. This is how do you want to be remembered? I bet we can all think about sort of the negative people that we don't ever want to see in our life again. Guess what? When you have a job opening, you're not going to call them. Don't you want to be one of those people that get calls and get, hey, would you like to come and speak on my podcast? Would you like to join me in this sort of roundtable circle? Those are the things I want to be invited to, and that's why I do this. I think your why, speaking of Simon Sinek, is really important. And I'm a big believer in community connection, social interactions that are meaningful. And like you said, if you lead with intentions that are positive, you're going to have positive outcomes.
So awesome, Julie. And you're talking about legacy there. And people think, they maybe perhaps some that, you wouldn't invite to a roundtable or a podcast or a dinner party or, fill in the blank. They have not thought or they were not mindful of their why and or their legacy. A legacy isn't for an 80-year-old. Well, respectfully, it is for an 80-year-old, but it's not just for an 80-year-old. A
Right.
legacy, there's micro legacies. There's a legacy that you had at Fabric. There's a legacy I had at the Jets. That legacy's done. So the people that worked with me have an opinion of me.
Yeah.
And that is finished. It ended, right? So now I have to be responsible for whatever that legacy was. To your great point about one's personal brand.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, Julie, you've introduced so many great things. And then the legacy in totality, right? You're going to go up and down as a person, but if you're mindful of your legacy, when you do get to the wonderful age of 80, which is young nowadays, your legacy will be positive, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so Julie, look at this conversation. We have not talked much about marketing, and you're a
Oh,
CMO. But that's okay. That's just how we roll. And I just love it. But here's a little thing I got from you that my researcher, Savin Narwell, she said she found this about Julie believes that all good stories are fundamentally stories of change.
yep.
Does that go into your marketing philosophy or is that more personal? Is it a hybrid and a combination of the two?
Well, so, it kind of goes back to one of the first things I started talking about, right? If you have a growth mindset, you're constantly changing, you're evolving, and you're changing as a person. And I really love watching people change and grow as people in general, and companies change and grow. And stories of change are also stories of impact, right? So one of my favorite brands that I have seen change different people's perspective about the environment is Patagonia. I love the story of Patagonia. And all the stories that we remember that resonate with you are some sort of transformation. You know, the coming of age movies or the brands that really make a pivot. If you watch the Nike movie, blanking on it, the name of it, but with Matt Damon, it's a story of
Air.
change, right? Air,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
It's such a great movie. And talk about like that phenomenal change with Michael Jordan. So, yeah, I believe that all great marketing is about sharing these stories. Because if you share a story, you resonate differently with a brand. You feel differently about the brand. You know, that's why social media and all these different types of experiences are so important, right? So you have to build what your backstory is, and people care. Now, especially Gen Z and Gen A, they care more and more about the backstory of a company, and they care that you're doing good things. And I'm happy to see that people's minds are shifting more towards wanting to know what the impact of a company is.
So, Julie, following up on that, you said they have a responsibility to tell that story of their relationship to their product and the community, their product and a social cause, their product, fill in the blank. What do you mean by that, and how best should they do it?
So the new generation, because they're so in tune with social media and they're watching all these Instagram stories, and it takes 5 minutes to Google anything and learn what a company has done, whether they've had bad press because they had a oil dumping or they did something that people don't want to see. But Gen Z especially, they'll Google what your company has done. So you want to make sure that you're actually telling great stories and doing mindful impact work. So a lot of companies will have a social responsibility division, but even if you're a smaller company, so for example, Fabric that I just worked at is a public benefit corporation, and we are based on giving back to for social interaction, for engagement, for community fan engagement and stuff. The company I'm with now, Office Speaking, one of the ways that we give back social for like social entrepreneurship style for impact is the office building that we have in our India office. All the funds from the building that we rent from goes to an orphanage that's right across the street. And so we have helped build out this orphanage by giving them revenue and income so that they can help foster orphans and get them adopted and find placement. So those are ways that, we're still doing business, we're still making revenue, right? So when we talk about these things, the younger generation very much cares in the backstory. Whereas you and I grew up where we were just trying to survive, and it's like, great, commercials told me to drink Coke. I'm going to drink Coke. Sounds good. I believe what you're saying. They don't believe what you're saying anymore. You got to actually prove it now.
That's a master's lesson right there. All right, Julie, let's go. Are you ready for all-star moments?
Sure.
We will get to all-star moments in just a second. To grow as a leader, you must make intentional choices about how you want to show up for yourself and your team. Are you ready to grow your leadership? The Gargano Leadership Group offers expert coaching, consulting, and workshops rooted in our 4 leadership pillars: curiosity, alignment, optimism, and self-awareness. Leadership starts with forging authentic connections, communicating your values, leading with energy and enthusiasm, and truly understanding yourself. Visit garganoleadership.com to get started with us today. Back to the show. Question number 1. Who markets well in sports?
Nike.
Who markets well as an individual in sports? An athlete, a coach, a personality?
I have to say Shaq does just a great job. He is everywhere.
What is your career highlight to date?
I will say one of my career highlights was I got to meet Magic Johnson. He is one of the best human beings I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and so kind and big smile. And I just feel like he's someone that just was like a wow moment for me.
Okay, so you brought up something, and I'm going to follow up on it and make it part of all-star moments, and it's this. The movie Air, the Nike story. What is your favorite scene in that movie with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and others?
So I don't know if everyone else will have this, but I love when the mom is on the phone with them and just telling them that, like, she was looking out for her son and she's like, "We're not just gonna take a one-time deal. I want a lifetime deal," and talk about a forever impact on the Jordan household, right? Pretty phenomenal, like, strong, empowered woman, and especially back then to be a minority woman doing that, I just thought her dialogue and that conversation was a wow moment for me. Like, good for her, taking care of her children.
Hiring people. What is the makeup of an ideal candidate to work with you?
I like people that are willing to learn, to try different things, and authentic, and team players. I really, really enjoy working with people who will take ownership and lead, but also be able to fall back and be the support.
And lastly, here, describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
I think I am a impactful, thoughtful, driven, mentoring leader. Oh no.
That is perfect. And guess what? True. That is awesome. Julie, this was so fun. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. I really enjoyed this.
And we thank Julie very much for being on the show. I could have 17 takeaways from this conversation, but I will focus on one because I think it's very important. And that's when Julie said throughout her career, she had run into bad leadership, bad managers, however you want to phrase it. That's how she phrased it. We have all done that. We have all had leaders that we just didn't understand, agree with, or made our lives less than ideal at our workplaces. We as leaders are not perfect. That is not what I'm saying is, but to be better as a leader and lessen the negative impact that poor leadership has, we need to work at it. And that's what Julie and I talked about, right? Her phrasing was perfect. She said, show people it's possible to be better at leadership by being a servant leader, having that mentality, allowing people to be empowered at their workplaces so they don't have, as Julie phrased it, the Sunday blues. You also heard, Julie, that she's had jobs, her job right now, where she logs in on the weekends, not because she has to, because she wants to, just to see what's going on. She said that with a smile on her face, meaning that their culture, and she also said her culture at Fabric was very, very positive, the job before the one she has now at Office Beacon. Better companies have better leaders when they focus on improvement and education and understanding each other. We spend so much time at work. It's very important. And I really enjoyed that part of our conversation with Julie. Hope you did as well. Have a great week, everybody. We appreciate you so much on Keep the Line Moving. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Keep the Line Moving. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers. It means the world to us. If you have a guest recommendation, visit our website at garganoleadership.com, where you'll also find all our archived episodes. For our marketing coordinator and the producer of this podcast, Savin Narwal, I'm Chris Gargano. Have a fantastic week, everybody.